Hey everybody, this is Scott Gustafson with Vital MX. We're here today at American Honda. We have our 2019 CRF450R test bike. The new bike has a few mechanical areas that are a little bit different from past bikes, and we want to show you how to make maintenance easier. So we're going to do a tech tip today on how to remove the rear shock. Okay, the tools I'm going to use today, first I'm going to need a Phillips head screwdriver of some sort, an 8mm, can be a T-handle or socket, 10mm, 12mm, and 17mm. I'm also going to need a flat blade screwdriver, and at the end I'll use a torque wrench to properly tighten everything down. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is remove the seat. You have two 10mm bolts on each side. Now each bolt has an aluminum collar, don't lose that. Now we can remove the seat. Next, I'm going to remove the number plate and the airbox cover. You have two 8mm bolts on each side. Now these covers are in two pieces. It's best if you keep them together just to speed up time. Now we're going to remove the shrouds. The shrouds are held on by three 8mm bolts. Now each bolt is different. This one has 5mm threads. These two have 6mm threads. This one is silver, this one is black to match this panel in the shroud. Okay, we're going to remove the 10mm bolts that hold the muffler on. There's two on each side, and we also want to loosen up the clamp that holds the muffler to the head pipe on each side. So we're just going to remove these bolts, but we're not going to remove the muffler itself. This bolt is just going to be loosened here. And now the same thing for the other side. Okay, we're going to remove the seat support here, and we're going to remove the three 8mm bolts that hold the tank on. The seat support is held on by two 8mm bolts, and they have collars on them, so don't lose those. So I'm not removing the seat support totally. I'm just loosening everything up so that I have more room to work with. The other thing you're going to need to do, it's clamped onto the subframe back here, so you just pop the plastic out. This just gives you more room to work, and things are more flexible this way. We're going to remove the fuel tank right now. Because you're going to be turning it sideways, if you have a lot of gas, the gas will come out the tube here. You can either plug it with a bolt or pinch it, or if you're careful, no gas will come out. So all you're going to need to remove the fuel tank is a small flat blade screwdriver. And I'm going to look at this from the side. First thing I'm going to do is take the electronics off. I'll just pinch that, remove it. I also like to take the whole cord away from the tank itself. So I'll pinch this little connector, move that aside. In order to remove the fuel line itself, first you're just going to take this plastic cap off, and it has nice tangs here to remove it real easily. And then to remove the fuel line from the fuel pump, the only thing you're going to need is a small screwdriver, and you're going to need to pop up this little green connector right here. So just take a flat blade screwdriver, fit it in the backside real gently, and just pry it up real gently. Once this is out of the way, you can just pull on the fuel line, pull directly back. It might take a little bit of force, and that'll just come off just like that. One thing I do like to do is Honda puts this connector between the fuel pump, fuel tank, and the frame itself, and they do that so the tank will just hang here. I like to remove it just so it's out of my way when I'm working on the bike, and I'll remove that from over here on the frame. Okay, so the wire harness is connected to the frame over here. So I'll just put my flat blade screwdriver in here, pry it open just a little bit, move this tie out of the way and fish out the harness. Okay, now if I lift up the seat support, it gives me access to the air boot here. And I just want to disconnect this. I don't need to unscrew the whole thing, just make it so that it's loose. Next, with my 12mm T-handle, I'm going to remove the bottom subframe bolts on both sides. And I'll loosen the top 10mm bolts on both sides of the subframe. I'm just loosening these, I'm not removing them. Okay, now we're finally able to cantilever the rear end of the motorcycle up so we can get access to the shock. When you do this, you need to be careful of all of your electronics here. Make sure you're not pinching anything, make sure you're not pulling at any wires. So just do this very gently, but you can just lift this up like this, get to a certain point where you feel comfortable, and then you can just tighten this 10mm bolt back down to hold it in place. Now I'm going to remove the two 17mm nuts that hold the shock on. We're going to remove the shock by pushing the bolts out here. The easiest way to do it is to give the shock a little relief, so just lift up on the rear wheel, push the shock bolt out, and just grab it and wiggle it from the other side. Same thing with the bottom. You're just going to lift the rear wheel up a little bit, push the shock bolt out, pull that out. Finally, we're ready to pull the shock out. Unlike the Hondas of years gone by where we unbolted the subframes, pushed the subframe over, the best way to get the shock out of the new Honda 450 is out the back. And you can just reach down and pull that shock and just pull it right out the back. Okay, reassembly is real straightforward. You put it back together just how you took it apart. There are a couple of key things to look at, and I'm going to show you that right now. Whenever you're tightening a shock back up, you want to load the suspension. You can see as I push back and forth that there's a little bit of play here, and you want to eliminate that. So when you're tightening things back up, lift up on the rear wheel and tighten things down. When you're ready to put the subframe back into position, you need to make sure that the air boot is connected perfectly to the airbox. So take a lot of care when you're doing this. What really helps too is silicone spray. Just a small amount of silicone spray will help get that to pop back in. The nice thing is Honda did a really good job this year with this air boot, and 9 times out of 10 it pops back in perfectly. Okay, when you're ready to put the mufflers back on, it's easiest to have the subframe slightly loose, put the middle bolt in first. Don't tighten everything up yet. And you want to do this with all 4 of your 10mm bolts, 2 on each side. You just want to get them in there and tighten them up gradually. This way everything will fit in much nicer. Another key area to be aware of when you're reassembling the bike is the seat itself. The seat is held on by 3 tangs here and your bolts in the back. So you need to make sure that you seat all these properly, especially here, getting this into the seat support itself. If you don't, you end up, the seat's too tall and then you're flexing it, and you'll also ruin the base of the seat. So when you are ready to put this on, just lift down here and pull up and make sure that all of these tangs are in. So that's the easiest way and the best way to pull a shock out of a new Honda. Finally, you can look in your owner's manual and torque everything down to manufacturer spec. If you like this video and you'd like to see other tech videos, let us know. If you have a tip about this bike, we'd like to hear from you. So fill it in the comments below. Also too, if you'd like to see more of this and like to be notified of it, subscribe to our channel. And thanks again from Vital MX.